Hello everyone and welcome to CareersTalk. I am Sunil Sharma, an Agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are going to discuss Scrum Master questions asked at Infosys, shared by one of our WhatsApp group member who recently gave the interview. And to help us with the answers, we have invited Anvita Prabhu with us. But friends, before we begin, if you're new here, please take time to explore our channel. You will find answer to all possible Scrum Master interview questions. And if you are truly wants to succeed in your Scrum Master interviews or excel in your career as a Scrum Master, this channel, CareersTalk, is all you need. So please subscribe to our channel. And if you find this session valuable, don't forget to hit that like button. So without further delay, let's get started and welcome Anvita. Thank you for joining us today. Anvita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sunan. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. And it's a great honor to be a part of your show because I grew in my career watching all your videos. So that's a plus point. And I just hope that, I would be more of explanatory so that people can understand and prepare themselves for the interviews. Yeah,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
that's
Yeah.
from me.
Thank you, Anvita. So if you allow, shall we start?
Sure.
Okay. So first question is like, which is normally the question. Tell me about yourself, specific to your responsibilities as a Scrum Master. So Anvita,
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anvita Prabhu. I'm basically from a place called Manipal in Karnataka, and I have done my engineering from Mangalore Institute of Technology and Engineering. I have close to 10 years of experience in IT. I began my career as a software tester, and then I went on a dual role of testing as well as Scrum Master. And currently, I am working as a Scrum Master for two different teams, one with a team composition of 8 members and the other one with a team composition of 10 members. And we basically follow a safe framework in our organization. So this is brief about me and my career aspects, I would say. Yeah, that's from me.
Okay, Anvita.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. The first question is like, if you can describe a situation where you have to resolve a conflict between two team members. So what approach would you take and and how are you going to manage this kind of
Yeah.
situation?
So I think this is one of the common scenarios which most of the Scrum Masters see in their career, right? So I would like to iterate based on two different situations which I have come across in two different companies, basically. So one of the companies wherein there was module A which was taken by a set of developers and module B which was taken by other set of developers. So it's a full process. So they were continuously working on those set of modules. And eventually what happened is the module A went on a maintenance phase, as in not much work was coming in for that particular module. It was just that you build the infrastructure and provide for the transaction part, which is the module B, right? So we had a very good team bonding within the team, I would say. We would sit together and we knew each other on a personal and professional front. So they took it in a very positive sense, and they had raised a retrospective point saying that we are not getting much of work. So in this perspective, I had to come up with an approach wherein the cross module KT was given to the set of developers, so that because of this, what happened is that there were multiple advantages, I would say. One is that everyone knew what the other person is working on. That's one of the plus point. And the second one is that let's say some of the team members goes on long vacation, right? That's the most crucial part. And the other person knew that what work can be taken and so as to cover up with the work, right? So that's another plus point. And we had also, I know that in Agile, we don't say as developers and testers, but however, since we have QA in practice, so I would say we also give cross-domain training for the QA so that they know every module, right? Not just the module what they're working on, and as a product, they know what exactly we are, focusing on. That's one of the scenario, I would say. And the second scenario, which I think most of the Scrum Masters, most of the teams, it will be there. That is a conflict between developers and testers, right? So that's in the current organization. I have it more frequently, I would say. That's because what happens is within the iteration, the developers, they tend to give the build a little delay. They will take their own, time to complete the work, and they'll give a little late to the testers. And they had raised the point, testers had raised the point saying that we are not able to finish the work within the timeline. So it looks as if the spillover is because of us, right? We're not doing the work, and all the user stories are in our name. And for the management or whoever sees the board, it looks as if the spillover is because of us. So we don't want that blame to be taken, right? Even though it is not a blame, yes, of course, spillover is named, the name, I mean, the assignee were testers, basically. So it so happened that this was a retrospective point which was raised. And for this, we have come up with a solution that we started providing multiple bills so that even the testers get quite a good amount of time to work on the particular user story and go about testing those effectively. So yeah, these are two different scenarios, I would say. Yeah, that's all from my end, Sunan.
Wonderful, Anvita. Thank
Yeah,
you for explaining in detail.
yeah.
Great. Let's move on.
Hmm.
So next question is on daily Scrum. So how do you ensure that your daily Scrum calls are proactive
Yeah.
and help the team to stay aligned and focused?
Hmm.
Yeah, towards their sprint goal. Yeah, Anvita.
Yeah, daily Scrum is basically one of the agile ceremonies, which is like 15 minutes duration. It's time box to 15 minutes. So most of the organizations, we see that daily Scrum is being misunderstood as a status meeting, wherein even first thing is that the developers or the team members who are involved in that need to know the purpose of daily Scrum. That I feel it is very important for them to know. And secondly, we what I practice is that before I half an hour prior to conducting the daily scrum, what I do a daily stand up, what I do is I jot down all the points. I go through the board and I jot down all the points and identify what are the impediments, what the team is facing, right? And what are the challenges we face within the team. And since we follow safe framework, we would also have dependency on the other teams. So in case if we have, we need to contact maybe the scrum masters of other team, then we would discuss on to that. However, we need to keep in time the we need to keep in mind that about the time boxing, right? So in case if there is some additional discussions which is required, which happens within the daily scrum, it's I mean daily stand up, it's also important for us to stop at that moment and consider that in the parking lot, right? Not to drag or delay with the time. So I think in this way we can set up the daily stand up in a most effective way. Yeah, that's from my end.
Thank you, Anvita, for that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is on matrices. So how do you use matrices, to track and improve your team performance, Anvita?
Hmm. So one of the most important metrics what we have is velocity, right? So what does it say, right? It's basically it says about speaks about what is the accomplishment or what is the achieved story points average of achieved story points over the past iterations. Now, for example, let me consider a example. Now I'm a fitness enthusiast. I go to the gym after a long duration. So what I do is I do a workout of like 35 minutes, okay, on day one. Second day, I do it like I stretch it a little bit onto 45 minutes. And third day, I do it on 1 hour. Fourth day, now I know that I can do it up to 1 hour, right? Fifth day, again, I'll take the average and I'll estimate, yes, this is what I can do. I can do up to 1 hour. This is how I conclude onto this. So velocity basically speaks about the predictability, right? Onto how much work you can take in a given iteration. So this is one of the metrics. And the second matrix, what we consider is the burn down chart, definitely. So burn down chart is basically it determines like how much of the amount of work that is remaining. Now, if this is onto the definition part, definitely. So we have like onto the x-axis we have the duration, whereas on the y-axis we have the story points, right? So now what exactly it is? Now we know the definition, but what exactly it is, right? So let's say we have the user stories within which you have specified tasks. Now what you do is for the task, what we add is the original estimate. Once we add the original estimate, what we get is the ideal graph or the original or the ideal graph we call it as. Okay. Now, once that ideal graph is being plotted, what we do is on day-to-day basis, we ensure that what is the amount of or how many hours we have completed and how much is it remaining, right? So that will be computed. Now, what is the importance of this is that if in case your actual graph is, let's say, deviating away from the ideal graph, in this case, what it means is that you have underestimated your user story and you're taking more time than what you have originally estimated, right? So that indicates that the estimation is kind of incorrect or you're deviating much, or it can be the other case, right? You have overestimated and you are able to finish it within the timeline. So in that case your actual graph will be somewhere within the ideal graph, right? So in this case, what happens? You have to ensure that somewhere it is in line. Obviously, it will not be accurate as such, but somewhere it should be close by the ideal and the actual graph. So this is onto the burn down chart. Then we have like what is called as you know cycle time, right? Cycle time, when we speak about it is like the time duration what you take from in progress onto the done state of a particular user story, right? So now all this, when we connect the dot, what happens is if your velocity is, if you are respecting velocity and if you're taking only story points as per your velocity, as in how much the capacity, how much you can achieve in a particular iteration, then what happens is your burn down chart will be almost in line. That is actual and the ideal graph will be almost in line. You will not have much of the deviations. As a result, what will happen? Your cumulative graph, sorry, your cycle time, you will be able to achieve the task within the given timeline, right? So in this way, I think these graphs are most important and it will help you to achieve your sprint goal, and you'll be able to complete the aspects within the time duration. Yeah.
Okay, great, Anvita. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. Next one is on risk. So, as a Scrum Master, how do you identify and mitigate the risk in your
Hmm.
project so that your project is stay on a track? And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, if you can also share a couple of risks which you have currently facing, maybe in your past project, so
Yeah,
that we will have a better idea. Yeah, please go ahead.
sure. So first of all, we need to identify for the new aspiring Scrum. I'm explaining with that perspective of a new aspiring Scrum Masters. So first of all, we need to identify what exactly is risk, right? So risk can be either a dependency. When we say dependency, it could be with the other teams. If you're in case if you're following SAFe framework, then you'll have dependency across the teams. And the second thing is like external dependency. For example, in our project, we have hardware dependency, which is basically from the different vendor, right? So what happens is we need to monitor their work. They may not be following agile, right? They might be following different framework altogether. So we need to follow up with the external dependency, external vendors. This is also one of the risk, I would say. And the other thing is the impediments, what we see in the particular project, right? That is also one of the risk. For example, let's say I rely on a designer, UX designer. Now, let's say I'll ask he or she to provide a particular wireframe within a given timeline, right? They will also have their own priorities to come up with. Now, let's say that the designer will say that today I can't provide this. I'll provide you after 2 days. Okay. Now what is happening here? Our project is getting delayed, which means we have an impediment over here, right? And the third aspect would be a blocker completely. Let's say the designer goes on a leave for about like 1 week, right? So now we are completely relying on that person, and we need to have another owner for that particular work to be done. So this is a blocker for us. So these can be categories of the risk, what I see. And now, how do you even identify these risks, right? Risk can be identified using brainstorming method, wherein you will discuss with the team and you'll come up with what could be the possible risk you're seeing with as I've explained what exactly risks are. With respect to that, you can compare and identify these things. And second thing is on the stakeholder interviews can be done, wherein you understand from the stakeholder onto what exactly is the risk you're facing within the particular project. And then you can also use a root cause analysis technique. And in safe, basically we follow what is during the PI planning, we go about identifying and categorizing the risks into ROM format, which is like you have either it is resolved. When you say resolved, it means that the risk doesn't exist anymore. And then you can also say it as owned. When you say owned, it is like you assign some of the ownership to a particular person, or within the team or outside the team, or the dependent team, I would say. And then you have accepted, which means you have to, the risk exists, but it is not impacting much on the particular iterations, whatever you're conducting. However, we have to live with it, something like that. And then the other sector is on to the mitigated. And now mitigation as in you need to monitor these particular risks and get it resolved. Now, how do we exactly monitor and mitigate this, right? That is one more aspect. Now, when we say we have to mitigate this, first of all, you need to have a proper ideal report, and you have to report to the stakeholder on what are the risks and what are the methods we are using, so that you have a transparency. And they, as per the agile principles, right? You need to build that trust within the stakeholders and the team. And the second thing is that you need to have a proper open communication within the team members, as well as the team wherein you're dependent on, and you need to monitor it in a collaborative manner, I would say. Yeah, these are some of the aspects which I would like to highlight about risk, identification of those and mitigation of those.
Wonderful, Anvita.
Yeah,
Just for our audience, I just want to add few things here and there,
yeah, sure,
Anvita.
sure, sure.
Yeah. So, whatever you said is great. A small thing I just want to add, that risk is nothing but a probability into time into impact, basically.
Hmm.
So basically, risk is a possibility of an event that
Hmm.
may occur that will have an impact on the outcome or the objective of our project.
Correct.
And risk can be both positive and
Hmm.
negative. It's not always negative, like,
Hmm.
so. So the nature of risk is it's an uncertain event or condition,
Hmm.
and if they occur, can have a positive or a negative impact or effect on a project or
Okay.
sprint's objective or outcome or goal, whatever you call it, right? So that's a small correction. See, risk itself is a huge topic, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
we have also created a couple of videos on risk. Long time back, I have created one risk register, risk burndown chart. I mean, that's a kind of good session for our audience. They can just browse the channel and they can also view that. Risk itself is a huge topic in project management. So I mean, I myself have spent like 2 days training from KPMG long time back, just 2 days only on risk, and even that we are not able to finish. So that huge is risk in itself. But then I think you are really sum up really well. So that's the only thing just I want to add, Anvita. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for that, Sunil.
Okay. Let's move on. So this is about sprint planning. So how do you ensure that your sprint planning is effective, and that results in a clear and achievable sprint goal? Uh, yeah. What are the inputs? What's the output? What
Yeah.
you as a scrum master do in a sprint planning? And yeah, I mean, whatever you want to convey, Anvita. Yeah. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So first of all, sprint planning is again agile ceremony, which is like a time boxed as per the Scrum guide. It is like 8 hours for a 1 month duration. However, it is like if you have like 15 days, then it is like obviously it's 4 hours. So, what exactly are the entry criteria? Before you start with the sprint planning, there are certain things which you have to consider. First thing is the capacity. You need to know what is the who are present on what days and what is the per day capacity. You need to know that. right, of individual employees who are working under that. Then second point is that it has to be refined. So before sprint planning, we would have backlog refinements also. That's not a mandatory, I would say, but yeah, that would be there. So you need to understand, you need to have clarity about the user stories. So when we say clarity, what does it mean? It means that the definition of ready has to be achieved whenever we come up for the sprint planning. When we say that the user story should be detailed enough and the acceptance criteria should be in place. When we say acceptance criteria, it should be in GWT format, basically, given when then format. And then also it should abide by the invest metrics, right? So what does it say? Like, it is basically, it says it should be independent enough, which means there should not be dependency between the user story. This will add delay to our delivery during the execution phase. And the second thing is that it should be negotiable. When we say that, it should not be too complex enough, the user story should be simple enough, and then it should be like valuable. That is, whenever you come up with the, whenever you finish a particular user story, as in the DoD is achieved, it should add some value to the customer or the stakeholders, right? It should not be like partially completed. Then it goes on to the estimable. So you should be able to estimate it. The basic rule I would say is that for estimate is that do not if it is more than 13 story point, then you need to do a logical slicing, I would say, because more than 13 is not advisable. So it means that it's more complex. Then next is about, it should be testable. That is, the user story should be in a possible state wherein you can test this, right? So these are the aspects. And again, if you consider it in a safe perspective, you should not have any dependencies. Those should be mitigated when you're coming from for sprint planning. You should not go with the blocker states, right? You should not have anything which is blocking your user story, and then you say, I'll finish off this in execution phase. No, that is not the thing. So you need to consider all these things as an entry criteria. And when you also, there is one more point, which is like the velocity, which we need to respect by and which we need to keep an eye on before we start with the sprint planning. Now, in the sprint planning, what we do is that we basically estimate the user story, and we consider those many user story, or the summation of those user stories should be such that you are respecting the velocity. That is, you're not overestimating, or you're not taking much more than what your velocity is. Of course, sometimes it so happens that the team is little overconfident about it. It so happens, and they are okay to take about it. That is left on the team again. So if they're confident enough to complete, it might deviate a little bit from the velocity. However, it should not deviate much from the velocity. That is most important. And what could be the exit criteria of that is that, like, when we come up with the once we finish off the planning cycle, it's important that we come up with the report wherein we have a proper sprint goal assigned for with the items what we are planning to take within the iteration. And we need to also go with the capacity. How much is the capacity? Accordingly, we have to take the work, not to overcommit or undercommit, I would say. So yeah, these are some of the aspects which I would consider during sprint planning. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, Anvita. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So next question is on sprint review. So as a Scrum Master, how do you facilitate your sprint review sessions to
Yeah.
make sure that those sessions provide some valuable feedback, and they should also align your team with your stakeholders. Yeah, Anvita.
Okay, sure. So sprint review is basically again a agile ceremony, I would say, which is like time box for about 4 hours as per the Scrum guide. So it's like 4 hours for 1 month duration sprint. So in case if it is like 15 days, then definitely it's 2 hours. So most important thing, what is review, right? Review is not about demoing thing and showcasing what we have done. Rather, it is like getting the early feedbacks from the customers or from the stakeholders. This is the intention of sprint review. So now, first thing what we need to identify is that the agenda of sprint review should be very clear, right? What we are trying to showcase to the stakeholders. And the second pointer is that the attendees need to be considered. That is, who are the key stakeholders? They should be a part of this particular review meeting because we get the feedback. And in case if you're following safe framework, then the dependent teams also should be a part of this particular sprint review, because you would get some feedback from them. At the same time, you would also showcase what you're trying to do so that they can also plan accordingly. So these should be the attendees for this particular this meeting. And the third entry criteria would be like the user stories. What you're considering should achieve a definition of done. Why? Because if in case your user story is not tested, let's say like the end checklist I'm considering out of DoD in DoD. So if it is not tested, then you might not get, you might, while demonstrating, you might, see some unexpected behavior of the application, right? So, and as a result, you might not get the required feedback, I would say. And then now, once you demonstrate a particular set of user stories to the end users or the stakeholders or the other dependent team, you would also consider, definitely you need to jot down these feedbacks, and then you need to showcase the roadmap also to the end customer, so that you know where exactly these priorities or the feedbacks would fit in, right? So that is also important, and we need to also prioritize these particular feedbacks, right? When exactly we have to take it, and what phase we can include these feedbacks, of course considering the team capacity as well as the velocity. So I think these are some of the aspects which I would consider during sprint review to get the early feedback. And also we need to ensure that the sprint goal is achieved, what we have set in the planning. So
Okay,
these are some of the important aspects.
great, Anvita. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Next question is on retrospective.
Yeah.
So again, please tell us your approach to
Mm,
manage or work or facilitate the sprint retrospective, and
mm,
how do you ensure that your retrospective lead to actionable improvements? Yeah, that's the follow-up
right.
question, Anvita. Yeah.
Okay. So retrospective is again one of the agile ceremonies, which is like time box for 3 hours. If you consider a 1 month sprint, otherwise it's like if you consider 15 days, then definitely it's 1.5 hour. As per the time boxing, right? So why is retrospective? Basically, retrospective is basically to identify what went well in the particular iteration and what are the improvements you can do within the particular in the upcoming iteration, right? Not that everything will go in would be a cakewalk. So you would definitely need some area of improvements, which you will be considering it as action item in the upcoming iterations. First of all, before I would iterate using two different instances, I would say. Before COVID, it was like every day you would go to the office, right? So in that, there was a team which had a very good team bonding, I would say, very good team culture, wherein we all used to sit in one conference room and we used to discuss each other's personal as well as professional friend, and we used to work together. So in this particular team, as I mentioned, retrospective, I would conduct in a whiteboard. So basically, I used to note down the points, and they were very upfront also. So they would let me know what went well, what didn't go well, and what the action items they would consider. So the action items I would jot down, and I would ensure that these action items are being monitored. And in the next upcoming iterations, I see the people uh, developers basically who are working in the project should see some of the progress, right? That is also important. And So I would ensure that I would add some of the tasks for myself, and I would track using these action items using the tasks. Then it came on to the virtual scenarios like as we have currently. So now we use Azure board for wherein you have built-in retrospective feature. So wherein you have some of the what went well, what didn't go well, and also there is one more section apart from action items I would add, which is shout outs. Why shout outs? Because it's always important to support the team, I would say, with their small accomplishment, whatever they do within the given iteration. This motivates the team, right? So we add another section that's shout outs. And action items, I would say in the similar front, like, I used to note down the action items and I would assign the owner. sometimes it so happened that some of the action items are for the management, right? Not for the team as such, but it is for the management, wherein, as I mentioned, in my current organization, we need hardware assistance. So hardware support definitely is from the different vendor altogether. So in this case, like, I would need support from the management to provide to monitor these things with the stakeholders, with the vendors. So I would assign the owner, and accordingly, I would follow up with whosoever it is assigned. And in the next iteration, I'll make sure that I see some progress. Developers in your team see some progress. This builds the trust between the Scrum Masters and the developers, I would say. Yeah, these are some of the ways which I have followed.
Wonderful, Anvita. I think you have just shared a couple of doable things
Yeah,
for all Scrum Masters. So I think that
yeah,
they're really
exactly.
wonderful. Great. Let's move on to the next one. So let's say that your team is under a lot of pressure to
Hmm.
meet their deadlines. So how do you support your team to ensure that they stay productive and motivated? Because sometimes, yeah, I mean, things goes in wrong direction. So we really need that kind of support from a Scrum Master. So if you can share some of your maybe past incident or
Yeah.
something like that, that will be really good. Anvita?
So this is one of the crucial state for any of the maybe project managers or scrum master, I would say. Like, when the team is under heavy pressure, and they wouldn't want to listen anything else apart from the work, and they have to finish within the deadline, right? So in this case, the most important thing is that you need to have a realistic and clear and realistic goals which is being set up for the team. So it should not be like you give out the team to overcome it onto it, or you pressurize the team to do it. Within the let's say you have some of the spikes, or I mean, definitely you wouldn't have any spikes at the end of the iterations. But let's say you have 2, 3 iterations, but you know the deadline, right? So in this case, if you have some of the spikes and all, you should not pressurize them like, okay, fine, finish off this, let's see the positive outcome only. It can be positive or negative outcome of a spike, right? So it should not be like you're pressurizing the team. Give a clear and realistic goal. That is first thing. And second thing is that have a transparent communication. There should not be a communication gap. This I have faced in the current organization also, wherein I faced some of the there was some communication gap between the product owners and between the developers. As a result, they didn't know what these people are communicating, and the developers didn't know what they were supposed to do. So the communication should be transparent, I would say, and clear, right? That's one more aspect. And as I mentioned in my previous section, right, there should be a even the small accomplishments what a team does within the given iteration or within a small period of time, that has to be appreciated and that has to be rewarded. Because no matter if the it's a human tendency to get motivated with the rewards, with the appreciations, right? That's one more aspect, I would say. And the fourth aspect, I would say, is that you need to have a constant support. It could be from the management. As a scrum master, we need to ensure that the team is getting constant support from the management or from the external stakeholders or from any of the dependent teams, right? That is very important, I would say. Yeah, these things, I think if you put forth together,
Yeah,
I think it will motivate the team.
great, Anvita. Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
those inputs. Great. So I think, Anvita, we are good for today's session. But friends,
Yeah.
this is just part one. Obviously, we are definitely going to have part two again with Anvita.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you, Anvita, one more time. And thank you, friends, for joining us today. We hope that you found it helpful, informative. And if you enjoyed this session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Sunan Sharma signing off. Bye. And thank you, Anvita.
Thank you once again, Suman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.